Now, let's start with the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly. How significant is this for the country's democracy? Mr. Alex.
Well, it's a symbolic undertakings by the ritual, as we call it now. And what I'm happy is also the fact that it has commenced with, understandings. I watched the elections take place at the House and watched the orderliness to which this, happened, and how indeed everyone embraced the results and the outcome of it. And one thing I want to also mention is the fact that there seem to be more of enthusiasm to work and also to lend supporting hands to one another. I saw it as a joyful awakening, a new beginning that is coming with a lot on the table, a lot of tasks, a lot of daunting things to which many Nigerians are craving for and yearning for, to see that the outcome, especially in the legislative arms now and the Senate, would be able to work harmoniously, especially in being able to dispense these bills as they come and be able to debate them as they should, and also be able to follow the appropriate steps towards passages of these bills. But in a nutshell, I think it's a good beginning in the sense that both the Senate and the House of Representatives took an orderly election manner, and it didn't come as many had predicted as a doomsday. Rather it came as an orderliness or pre-discussed arrangements that were just played out, in a harmonious, friendly handshake. That's where I sit.
All right, so for you, Sir Kenny, I mean, it's 24 hours after the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly, and some Nigerians are saying it may not be business as usual for the National Assembly, considering the kind of president we have, who has kicked the ground running since day one. So how significant is this for the country's democracy?
Well, the good thing about it is that, first and foremost, we're able to cross the hurdle of electing the presiding officers without much rancor, as was envisaged. Now, what the Senate has to do immediately is to set an example to the House of Reps. There will be no need for us to have ad hoc committees at this stage. Nigerians are growing under the pains of what has happened in terms of the subsidy removal. Yes, we talk about palliatives, but they have to set up the committees immediately, especially the critical committees of the House, in the Senate and in the House of Representatives. Now, if you set up those committees without much ado about the politics that is involved, you will send a very strong message to Nigerians that the National Assembly, the 10th National Assembly, is not ready to do business as usual of delaying the setting up of committees. These committees are supposed to act as oversight functions to ministries and departments and agencies. This will also endear the president more to the House, and this will also enable the president make up his mind on appointing the ministers, even though he has been given 60 days by the amendments that was done by his predecessor in office. He will send the list of ministers quickly to the National Assembly, the Senate specifically, which will be in charge of screening these ministers, and to make the job of getting the economy or rejigging the economy to function better at this point in time, because there are many things that the House has to look into. The PIB is urgently needs to be looked into. If you remember, the PIB is one of the reasons why the fuel subsidy was removed. And you're talking about the immediate palliatives that you're going to also provide, and to enable the inflationary trend which has started. We are still looking at 22%. If we don't check it at this point, it might get up to 25 to 30%. And also review the monetary policies of the central bank, which all this can be done by the oversight functions of the committees that are going to put in place. So putting those committees in place is the first thing they must do at this material point in time.
All right, so before I get back to Mr. Alex, with a new set of leadership at the National Assembly, looking back at the whole event, how will you describe the process?
Is that question for me?
Yes, please.
Please, can you come again?
Looking back at the whole event yesterday, how would you describe the process?
The process of what?
Of the emergence of the new set of leadership at the National Assembly.
Oh, first and foremost, it was the process that enabled the leadership to emerge was very transparent. I don't think we've had anyone that's been this transparent. First, the senatorial race was very strong. It was very steep. But if you look at Akpabio, most of us have said he's a square peg in a square hole. I think he's one Senate president that has been quite lucky in the sense that most Nigerians have accepted the fact that they needed to go to the South and he needed to be Akpabio. I mean, this is the first time you hear a party actually zone a seat and actually zone it with a name, not only sending it to a zone, but with a name. And that also applies to the House of Representatives. Now, if you look at Abbas has sponsored 74 bills. That is by no means a joke. And out of those 74 bills, 21 has been assented to by the president. I think that record will be almost impossible to beat, even in this 10th assembly. I wonder.
All right, gentlemen, Sakele, let me put you on hold. We have a breaking news. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu suspends Bawa indefinitely from office as Chairman, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved the indefinite suspension from office Mr. Abdurrashid Bawa as the Chairman, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to allow for proper investigation into his conduct while in office. This follows weighty allegations of abuse of office leveled against him. Mr. Bawa has been directed to immediately hand over the affairs of his office to the Director, Operations in the Commission, who will oversee the affairs of the office of the Chairman of the Commission pending the conclusion of the investigation. All right, Sir Kelly, you can go on with your submission.
Okay, so if you then look at Akpabio comes with a very huge experience, having been a parliamentarian speaker even in his university days. He's been a governor that has done 8 years in Akwa Ibom, and he's still to be rivaled with the projects he's done. Well, maybe his stint as the Minister of Niger Delta had controversial sides to it, but at the end of the day, he finished his term in office and tried to become the president of this country, even after serving in the Senate. Don't forget, too, that he was a minority leader as a first-time senator. So a lot is on his shoulders now as the Senate president. And he said it clearly yesterday that he recognizes the weight of the office. And so with the support he has gotten from Nigerians, the support he has gotten from his colleagues, I expect that the success story he has had in Akwa Ibom, he will bring it to bear on the legislative arm. And being a lawyer, you know he's a lawyer too. Most people do not remember that Akpabio is a lawyer. Being a lawyer, it makes it even easier for him to become more knowledgeable on the issues of making laws. And not only making laws, but giving a charge, because now he's the chairman of the National Assembly, which enables the bicameral house, which includes the bicameral house, the two houses of the House of Reps and the Senate. And so in his leadership example, will also trickle down to the House of Reps and would also influence Abbas as a speaker, like we saw in Lawan and Wajabia Miller's combination. Yes, we don't expect them to become a rubber stamp, but at the same time, we don't expect unnecessary rifts, which will make the Assembly, the National Assembly, not to assent to a lot of, not to allow some of the bills or some of the executive legislation that could be done by the president. That is one thing we expect the National Assembly to do. So Nigerians will become much more abreast with the workings of the National Assembly, and not one that will just condemn them that they've been taking money and collecting jumbo pays home. That's exactly the way I say.
All right, gentlemen, before we go on with our core issue for today, I would like both of you to react to this breaking news I just read, and that's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu approving the indefinite suspension from office Mr. Abdurrashid Bawa as the Chairman, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Mr. Alex, you can go first.
Well, I think just an interview I granted to a media house recently, I did tell many that we have a working president now. The problem we've had in the past is that we've had a situation where people use their offices, and abuse the powers and privileges that come with such offices. I'm not directly laying any claim against Mr. Bawa. He's been put under investigation now, so it's expected that the outcome of the investigation will be made open. That is one difference I believe Asiwaju Bola Tinubu stands for. You see, another thing is that a lot of people did not know Asiwaju Bola Tinubu and only perceived him based on the insinuations that is out there, which a lot of people, for the sake of election, branded him. But what I'm happy now is that the rhetoric is changing. From everyone you have conversation on the street now is the same. We didn't even expect that this would be the outcome. And I'm saying this is just the test of the iceberg. When you come into an environment that is so denigrated, the ideal thing would be to first of all cleanse the environment. Because so long as you have negativities within an environment, it will not allow you achieve the purpose that you have set out to do. And the one thing that I'm happy is that in any of the so far moves that the president has made so far, you can see the overwhelming joy of the people that he is setting them free. Going also by what we heard, the suspension of the CBN governor. It was welcomed on the street like as if it was a wild jubilation of celebration. So I think there's a lot of things that has been happening in the past that we need to set the games right. We cannot continue to live in a nation where people, have a gross misconduct, and live in impunity and do things because they are the helm of affairs and always get away with it. I think one change is now beginning to re-echo in the minds of those, even those that it has not touched, that yes, this thing will get to them finally. The game is up for the days of impunity because Nigeria is our own country. We have no other country as Nigeria. So if we don't take care of Nigeria, nobody else will. And I'm happy that the president is taking this gradually by first of all giving time to assess the situation and not on hearsay. I'm sure that there must have been a fact before the president for him to have made any of the decisions he has made. And if he has placed him on investigation and suspended until the investigation is concluded, that is the ideal situation. And also, it's a right signal to all other parastatals and ministries, which we are all patiently waiting for until it gets to their own turn. Because we cannot continue in this barbaric way. We've had so much gross misconduct and abuse of power and privileges. And the worst aspect of it was that these things keep reoccurring in the faces. I remember that in the previous administration, the Nigerians got tired of complaining and as such had to put their rest to their case because it was as if the more you complain about a certain individual, the more the individual is given more powers and also accumulations. And we're beginning to see some of these debts now that the carpets they were swept under are now being open. Only God knows what will cover more as the days unfold. So it's a commendable move, and the Nigerians are behind the president. I can tell you that aside during the Jonathan's administration, no other president is getting the same support as Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is getting currently now.
All right, so Sakeni, how commendable is this move?
Remember we had a program just before the president was sworn into office. If you remember that on that program, I clearly said that President Bola Tinubu will have to distance himself from a lot of the policies of Buhari. A couple of people didn't understand what I was trying to say, but that is what is happening now. I remember we also said he had to step on toes, and you also asked me a very direct question as regards that. I remember that program very well. I also agree with you that there were very tough decisions that the president was going to make. Now, Bawa was accused of paying thousands of dollars for almost 9 or 10 hotel rooms when they went on Hajj. And I didn't see any reaction from him. And it was mind-boggling if we had the almost 300 or 200 and something thousand dollars that was incurred in terms of bills and the evidence was there, I actually thought he was going to react, because that I was taken aback when I first of all heard that allegation. Because if you are the chairman of EFCC, you must live above board. You can't be incurring a bill of about $300,000 and you say people will not raise, unjust hotel bills if it was true, because it was an allegation, which he did not actually react to. And don't forget too that President Tinubu is privy to security reports that we are not privy to. And he's also privy to a lot of intelligence reports that we are not privy to. So for him to have taken this decision, it shows that he must have gotten very serious intelligence and substantial facts that he wants to be further investigated. But one thing he has to do is that he has to make it open to Nigerians, because Nigerians at this point will want to say, look, we want to know why the chairman of the EFCC is being removed. Hope he's not being removed so that you can bring in somebody who will be teleguided. So those facts and those evidences should be put on the door of the public, or on the court of the public opinion, so that people can judge for themselves. And I expect that Tinubu will certainly do that. He wouldn't have just suspended him from office without making people aware of his allegations. One of the things that Buhari was condemned for was that when he removed Magu, till today the white paper has not been released. And these were the things that people condemned his administration for. And exactly the war on corruption, which we could not have given a pass mark. And one of the mantras he came into office was security, economy, and war against corruption. So removal of Bawa, Nigerians will welcome it if they are convinced that he actually abused his office. But I just gave you an example of an allegation that was made, and I didn't hear a rebuttal from him. So as the days go by, we'll have to keep our fingers crossed.
All right, gentlemen, let's take a break, and when we come back, this conversation will continue. Please stay with us. Welcome back. This is Still Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. And today I have Development Management and Policy Analyst Alexander Oji and former Commissioner in Delta State Oil Producing Area Development Commission, Sakeni Okolugu. Tonight we're discussing the task before the 10th National Assembly. So, gentlemen, let's talk about the composition of the new National Assembly leadership. How confident are you about their ability to deliver on the renewed hope of the current administration? Mr. Alex, you can go first.
All right. I think Senator Goswe Akpabio, has come with a rich CV. Having been a two-time governor of Akwa Ibom State, former minister, a former senator, and now a Senate president. I think it comes with a lot of experiences gained, be it at the state and at the federal level. One of the things, too, that also gives me some level of comfort to feel that, yes, we have a man who may be able to tackle some of the lingering situations and crises we've had over the years, especially when it comes to the issue of allegation of corruption. I wouldn't want to use the words of the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, of how he described the assembly and the lawmakers. But however, we remember what played out while Senator Akpabio was the minister for Niger Delta, and his appearance at the Senate, you know, the ups and downs and the drama that took place, where indeed he was ready to read out the figures, the names, and the facts. I think for such an individual, Nigerians will feel more comfortable that an individual like that who is coming on this board now, and maybe knowing his pedigree and the kind of person, there may be certain level of trust to say that there could be limitations in the level of Zico or the ex-wild rubber stamp senators we've had in the past. However, it is not a task he can undertake alone. One other thing that I believe that can make this National Assembly very effective is also the principal or the other principal officers, because you need to look at the composition of the individuals. If you have a rotten egg among other good eggs, the tendency for the rest of the eggs to go bad in a couple of days or weeks is definitely higher. But however, looking at the Nigeria of today and the new sheriff in town, it may be difficult again to say that the days of do anyhow and get away with it may be over, because we know that a lot of expectations are out there on the shoulder of the president, who said in his words he applied for the job. It means.
So Alex, are you there?
He is ready. Okay. It means the fact that he got the people he requested or wanted to have to work with him, it is also a plus for him. So I will be expecting to see, a renewed hope from the Senate to the Federal House of Representatives with Abbas, and who is also coming with a rich CV. Let's not forget that these individuals have over the years traversed the various civil services at the leadership levels, and now they are at the helm of making laws. They are in touch with the people, and it is expected that the laws that they will be concentrated on making will be to alleviating the sufferings of the common man. But let us not forget that each time we are selfish to only consider the common man, because most times we say the law is for the common man, and we don't consider the rich. And then again, we ask ourselves, when we place equality within the society, we must make laws both for the common, both for the rich, and everyone. No one should be above the law. So I believe that the new composition of the new men on board will definitely add value, in the sense that they have come prepared, and indeed they seemingly have rich CVs to speak for themselves. Yeah, and also the fact that they have been on these routes and know, the rudiments, all the intrigues. So it would be difficult to say that they are first timers, and as such, anything will just go or slip by them. But however, we as Nigerians must also stand up to keeping them to their words, because it is only in continuing to engage them, especially when we see that there is a strain or there's a misalignment in the expectations that we have set as agenda, then we must be able to speak out. So I don't expect that if Nigerians are not docile, we shouldn't have docile leadership. That's my expectations for them.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Alex. Now, Sir Kelly, while you react to that, you would also agree with me that the National Assembly is presently being perceived poorly, or poorly perceived by the public. How would you advise the National Assembly to turn things around, in terms of public acceptance and goodwill for optimal performance?
One of the first things I think they will do is to revisit the petroleum industrial bill, the PIB. You remember that the host communities were given less than 5% of the profits. And apart from being from the Niger Delta, I remember when he visited Papa Clark, made a very strong speech. The Niger Delta people, I am from the Niger Delta, we laid the golden eggs and we have not gotten the fair share of what derivation is supposed to be. And so what I expect him to do at this point is to also weigh in on resource control. Now we have found out that there is also oil in the north. There's in mining, there's a lot of deposits in mineral deposits, gold, and so many other things up north. So resource control should be, they should put teeth into it. It shouldn't be lip service. Because right now we have someone who did 74 bills, meaning that 53 bills were not assented to by the president, so 21 was passed. And so you have an Akpabio who also expressed his frustration on the reason why he could not complete the East-West road, because funds from there were taken from the Niger Delta Ministry to the Ministry of Works. So in all this, we should be able to see two presiding officers who are going to use their huge experience in actually making laws that are going to impact on the common masses. It will be only laws that would impact on the rich. Now we know subsidy is gone. What palliatives are they going to be able to adjudge that should be sent down to the people? If $10 billion was being used as subsidy in a year, we expect that $10 billion to be used in terms of the palliatives that are going to be that will trickle down to the people. These are the things I expect them to actually look into as drivers of the National Assembly.
So for you, Mr. Alex, I mean, party supremacy finally prevailed. The election of the leaders went the way the APC leaders wanted it. What is the implication of this for the polity?
Well, the implication and the signal at the early stage is that there is harmony. But however, you know, even when the harmony starts in most relationships, it is the journey that also determines if the relationship, you know, can withstand the tides of time. The party supremacy has always reigned, but we've had a situation where some individuals take advantage of it and then convert the whole, you know, into their own powers. And that is one thing that the Nigerian state must fight against. When we have a situation that individuals become more powerful, you know, to the extent that there are no laws to checkmate them or to, you know, to checkmate their excesses. And that is what we witnessed in some administrations before now. I do not think that there might be a lot of rancor, in as much as the very first stage has been overcome. It was envisaged that the house would have probably fallen down yesterday, and those predictions came and you know, failed to materialize, because we were expecting that, in as much as there were still some rancor and disagreement as regards the leadership tussles, that we were expecting there may be a repetition of what happened in 2015. But however, it shows that Aswagi is a master of the game, and that he has the people behind him. The only reason why that could have been achieved is because he has the support of the people, and that the majority are with him. And for the fact that they have been able to showcase that in a uniform voice and spoke in oneness, I think all the next phase is the expectations in the delivery from the principal officers. There will be definitely lots of internal pressures here and there, as my colleague had just said now, regarding expecting Akpabio to revisit the PIB and all other related, as it may affect his own region. We are.
So, Alex? All right, Sakani, let me come to you. So I do not know whether or not that was surprising, but interestingly, the election of the Senate president was tighter than that of Speaker of House of Reps. What is your view about this?
I hope you can see me well, because I just had a power surge in the office. Am I on the screen?
Yes,
properly?
yes, please go ahead.
Okay, please, can you come again with the question, please?
Oh, so I said I do not know whether or not that was surprising, but interestingly, the election of the Senate president was tighter than that of Speaker of House of Reps. What is your view about this?
Because there was a lot of sentiments as regards the votes that the Northwest had produced. But I think the party, the APC, I must give it to them in their wisdom, has zoned the deputy speakership to the Northwest and gave the speaker to the Northwest. So that sentiment of the votes that the APC got from the Northwest should have been not been brought into the front burner. Nobody thought Yari was going to get up to 46 votes. But by the time it was getting close to the election, it became clearer that the support base for Yari had increased. But I think the intervention of the president also helped a lot, because if you remember very well, Ndume said, who was the Director General of Akpabio's campaign, said he had 75 senators who had signed on to Akpabio's presidency. And they got only 63 on the floor, meaning 12 people dissented. And it might have been more if maybe the president did not actually weigh in at the last minute. But then again, I don't think that should have made people think that the assembly was going to become a rubber stamp because of the intervention of the president. There is no president that would not want to be interested in who becomes the Senate president, or who does not, who will become the Speaker of the House. So the competition was such that they felt, some felt that, the president should not dictate to us, should not be the one to tell us who should lead us at this material point in time. I think that is exactly what made the competition, what put the pressure on the floor of the House. And a lot of people voted, and the opposition party, the PDP, mainly voted for Yari. It was also a case of telling the APC that, look, if you go this way, we'll go this way. You will notice that the Director General of Yari was Ningi, who is PDP. The Assistant Director General of Yari is Abdul Ningi from Bauchi State, who is a PDP senator. And the likes of Jimo Ibrahim, even though APC, were also convinced that this material point in time, they needed to maybe show independence of the legislature. But I think it would have been wrong, because Nigeria is a secular state. If Yari had emerged yesterday, it wouldn't have been a good thing that would have number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 as Muslims.
All right. I do not know if Alex is back with us, but let me just continue with you. I mean, just like I asked him earlier, the election of the leaders went just the way the APC leaders wanted it. What is the implication of this on the polity?
Well, what it means is that, first and foremost, the APC do not now have any reason not to deliver to Nigerians. Because if maybe they had gotten other presiding officers other than the ones that was prescribed by the party, they can then say, maybe the case of Saraki and Dogara is being repeated, where there was a lot of strife between Buhari and the National Assembly. And there was mutual suspicion between both parties. Whatever bills that were brought, they were delayed, and eventually, if you notice, the two people, Saraki and Dogara, eventually ported to the PDP. So what it portends now is that the APC will then now come home to bring out the policies of Tinubu. Tinubu assured Nigerians, he's told them, I look for this job, do not pity me. Because when people say they don't envy him, he said, look, I knew what I was coming into. But I must give it to him. This few weeks he has been president, the decisions he has taken has been one that has been very commendable. Nobody can fault him at this stage. And he's winning the support base of those who did not even vote for him. So if he continues on this trend, being the leader of the party at this particular point in time, the message he will be sending across to Nigerians is that this was not the Tinubu you people thought, or this was not the man you did not vote for. This is because if you look at the elections were very close. 8 million, almost 7 million and 6 points, almost 7 million for PDP, and over 6 million for Peter Obi. So this is a message I'm sending across to you people. Look at the student loans he has signed, for example. Look at the removal of subsidy. He's the first president that has taken the bull by the horn, despite the harsh economic situations that he has come in to meet. So those things that he promised that he was going to do, he has started doing them. And so let us see if he's going to rejig what he did in Lagos State on this country at this material point in time, subject to the courts not having any contrary decisions to the elections that brought him into office.
All right, Mr. Orji, now that the new leaders emerged based on the party's choice, I mean, many are afraid the 10th National Assembly may pander to the whims of the executives. Earlier, I talked about public perception. Are their fears misplaced?
Oh, well, everywhere globally, every democratic settings, you would often find out that any sitting president would always want a Senate or an assembly he can work confidently and comfortably with. It is not out of place that Asiwaju Bola Tinubu has made a request of some persons he feels he will be comfortable to dispense, his leadership on Nigeria. And I think it is also not out of place that the party has played the role it has in bringing about uniformity and unity and understanding, because understanding is one key that must be the leading principle in achieving anything under this administration, as we are now beginning to see it all play out. However, the onus now is on the president and his team, because the buck stops on the table of the president. These were his wishes. It has been granted to the fullest. It is now expected that it is time to work. And I'm happy that he has formidable teams that are even at with what we have seen so far, that have shown willingness to take the bull by the horn. If he's getting the same support from the National Assembly, I do not see any tendency for him not to deliver, because the task ahead is daunting and is beyond imagination. Nigeria needs attention in all aspects of life, which he himself, as the president, was able to identify before coming on board. And I believe that having been able to get this area sorted, the next phase will be to appoint the people to lead the affairs of other areas, as he, the president, cannot be at all places at all times. So it is now expected that the assembly will also showcase him, showcase its own support by giving the president the needful support when he approaches them. But again, Nigerians are not expecting a rubber stamp National Assembly. We're expecting an inquiry into things before it should be done. It shouldn't be a situation because it's coming from the president's table, just as we witnessed with the immediate past administration, especially in terms of loans. Nigerians need to know the reasons for the borrowings and indeed the repayment plan. While it is easy to approach and get a loan, Nigerians should be concerned about the repayment plan. And Nigerians should be more concerned about the sustainability of the repayment plan. You cannot go to borrow loans, and in most cases it is squandered and looted. And at the end of the day, it is indebted into Nigerians and the future generations to repay. And yet Nigerians does not get to have the infrastructures. At the end of the day, we haven't seen meaningful prosecutions, except as Nigerians are clamoring and looking onto the president, that it should no longer be business as usual, that people would often do things and get away with it, or that things would happen, nobody is held responsible. We should have a situation where a leader at the helm of affairs should be held accountable and responsible for misdeeds in the ministries they hold. For instance, with what happened with the immediate past administration, especially in the Ministry of Interior, Nigerians would not want a repetition of what happened under the Ministry of Interior, where prisons were broken, people got away. Till today, Nigerians don't know who and who are in the custody of the Nigerian Correctional Facility, or those who have been recaptured, or those who are out there. What it meant is that the safety and the comfort of an average Nigerian has been challenged, and yet we never saw the president do anything about it. These are just one out of many that happened under the previous administration that Nigerians are praying that it never comes to light in this present administration. So I believe that the president who had applied for this job, who has said, "Don't pity me," who is also showing the doggedness, to ensure that he meets up. The Asuwaju I know is somebody who is willing to give it all. And one thing that I know that many know of him is also the fact that he is never going to relent in ensuring he gets the very best. One of the things I believe that the National Assembly can do is to indeed enact laws to ensure that all those who have actually plundered this nation's wealth are brought to book, and that Nigeria recovers in entirety all that has been looted under the disguise of those who were in power or in leadership. And I believe that this task before the National Assembly must be fulfilled for Nigerians to feel, yes, that indeed their yearning have been met. And let us not forget that if this is just a 4-year assignment, there will still be a second round to come to appeal for the Nigerian voters in the next 4 years. So I'm sure that the leaderships are aware. I would not want in any way at all to not deliver, especially with so much expectation from Nigerians, across all board. We can see clearly that Nigerians now are showing meaningful support to the president, and also to his executive staff. And as such, Nigerians are willing to, to go through this suffering if we need to, so that we can get a better country that we'll all be proud of in the end.
All right, gentlemen, let's quickly analyze the composition of the National Assembly members from 7 different parties. Sir Kenny, what impact will this have of legislation for the 10th Assembly?
Well, if you look at it, this is the first time we're having senators from the 8 different parties in the National Assembly. You have about 8 from the Labour Party, you have about 59 from the APC, you have 1 YPP, you have 2 SDP, and I think you have about, is it 37 or so from the PDP. What it means is that the APC is a majority, but is not so much a majority as it used to be. So it means that the Assembly or the Senate, to start with, must see themselves as one, irrespective of political parties, for them to be able to work together in unison for the bills, for the executive bills that will be initiated by President Bola Tinubu to be passed. There need to be an understanding. And if you look at the House of Rep, you have about 38 or so from the Labour Party, about 180, maybe 180 or so, or 179 from the APC, about 117 from the PDP, and you have about 5 from ABGA, and 1 from YPP, and maybe 2 from ADC and 2 from SDP. What it therefore also means is that there is not an overwhelming majority by the APC. And the tax before Abbas is that he had 353 members of the House of Rep. It has never happened in the history of the House of Rep. 353 members voted for him. He has no choice. He voted for him across party lines. In fact, all the opposition parties voted for him because the other 6 votes that did not come to him was APC people that voted for the other 2 people who were nominated. So Wase now has seen that Nigerians have given him their total support across all the federal constituencies. 353 constituencies said, we want you to be our speaker. So the task before him is being able to work in harmony. And actually, first, he's been somebody who has sponsored a lot of bills, to work in harmony with his colleagues from the other parties and endear himself to them, and also set up committees devoid of politics. Let him set up committees, put square pegs in square holes. If you're a lawyer, I can put you in a committee that has to do with INEC, that has to do with EFCC, for example, the Judicial Committee. If you have experience in banking, I'll put you in the banking background. In the Niger Delta, you had an experience either being an executive or have done things that have to do with investment, social investment programs. I can put you in those kind of committees. These are the kind of committees that will act as an oversight, because the job of the legislature is not only to make laws, you're also to act as an oversight. You're also to act as a check and balance on the executive. This is what brings government closer to the people. The House of Reps are closer to the people than the senators. And so it is very important for him to now use this to his advantage and not also have caucuses alone that will be favored only by himself. So at that point, at this material point in time, you expect him to now impact on these various committees the need to go about their oversight functions without fear of favor. And that same will also apply to the Senate. And I think that's why he has had enough experience.
We're gradually running out of time, so let me quickly get you on my next question. You know, expectations of Nigerians are high. For you, what next for the National Assembly?
Oh, yes. Expectations of Nigerians are very high. Just like the way the president has hit the ground running, they have to hit the ground running. There should be no unnecessary adjournment at this point. I'm happy that I saw that the Senate sat today, and I think the House of Rep also sat today. So they should hit the ground running. If possible, they should increase their period of sitting since they have their calendars when they go on adjournments, they've had times that they went on, especially for the new members, they've had induction, they've gone on refresher courses, they've been taught the business of the house, and for the new senators, same thing applies to them. So they have no choice but to hit the ground running. Let us hear the committees being set up for the first time. Let us hear that the committees have been set up by next week. Nigerians will now know that the Senate and the House of Rep really wants to hit the ground running at this point in time.
So, Mr. Alex, how do you react to that? How important is it that Nigerians are directly asking for bills or set of legislation that will directly address growing hunger, poverty, and insecurity in the land, rather than churning out numerous bills that will make no impact at the end of the day?
Yeah, the expectations are high. The truth of the matter is that Nigerians wished that this so-called new approach to the economy will start from the top. We're wishing that the assembly, which indeed over the years has proven to be extremely expensive for the Nigerian to maintain, especially at this time, will first of all begin by making sacrifices, because leadership is also about making sacrifices. That we are hoping and praying that these individuals will at one time, especially now, consider to sacrifice some of their comforts and reduce the pain on Nigerians in maintaining them as various assembly members. Their major duties are just in the enactment of laws and nothing much more than that. Nigerians have been yearning for transparency in the National Assembly budget, in the executions of the various so-called constituency projects, and then the so-called various renovations of the National Assembly and indiscriminate award of contracts. Nigerians have been yearning for a total cut down on especially the involvement of the various National Assembly members across all ministries. We've had in the past where most ministries have also fingered the National Assembly as the major perpetrators in the budget pardons in most of these ministries. We believe indeed in a new working president, that he will revisit this and also task these each members to indeed look inwards. The nation is bleeding in terms of resources. It is no longer going to be business as usual in, spending extravagantly to maintain these individuals, especially in the comfort lifestyle that are sponsored by Nigerians. Nigerians want to see a total cut in the budgets of the National Assemblies across all boards of all National Assembly related matters. So we believe that these excesses can actually go to taking and addressing some of the lingering issues or lingering infrastructural deficits we have in other areas of.
Mr. Alex, thank you very much. That's a good way to end the show. Thank you so much. We're out of time. I must say a very big thank you to you, Alexander Orji, Development Management and Policy Analyst, and former Commissioner in Delta State Oil Producing Area Development Commission, Sir Kenny Okolubu. Thank you for your perspective on the show tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But the conversation continues from here. Get in touch with us on Twitter at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We are also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Good night.
With total submission and gratitude to God for a life well spent, we announce the transition to glory of Mr. Tolu Ogunkoya, whose sad event occurred on the 25th of April, 2023. Burial events are as follows. Service of songs comes up at the Redeemed